Hello there. Um, Side note, we're starting out with this. I never know what to call these things. And well, we're starting out with two side notes. This is fun. Um, I never know what to title the live, so I just kind of title it with whatever pops into my mind. And I retitle it by the time it actually gets published as a live replay. So just in case you're curious what this one is, it was originally going to be something else. And then I decided, you know what? Let's save that title for something different. I've got something planned, a story that's in development. Um, this title is A Bag of Cats. And I just love that there's like a cat right with me from the get go. I'm actually surrounded. Well, not really. I've got Elio, Third Eye, Mo, and then the two dogs are at the end of the makeshift couch. Since we're talking about the sanctuary, this is what I mean with like, I titled this A Bag of Cats because I was sitting here. I have the energy, as you can see, right? It's been a very good day. It's been very productive. A lot of things have been moving with development and research and just all of the things. Um, so I'm in a good mood, right? Um, but lots of things that I could talk about. What was I saying with the sanctuary? Oh, um, we're starting renovations ish. Like I have to finish going through and getting rid of a few things first before actually getting into like legit renovations. Um, and part of me is like, maybe you should actually speak more to that today, Em. Probably. But like the couch, I call it a couch, right? It's actually just I learned this from one of my friends. She did it in her Nashville home when she first moved to Nashville. She since renovated her place, moved around like lots of stuff. But two twin beds. I think she had it was like it wasn't two twin beds. But I've got two twin beds with a crap ton of pillows to make it almost like a nest, right? Um, and then a cover, just because when you have as many animals living in the house with you as I do, like if you heard that, that was a cat hissing in the background. Again, title A Bag of Cats, featuring a crazy childless cat lady. Anyway, this live is off to a great start. How are you? um, Let me see. Okay, I had some intentions with this, and like I'll get to that for sure. A lot of things are shifting. Fun fact, this live is going to be chaotic. And part of me feels like I say that every time. But it is what it is. Um I just have so much to say. There's so much in development right now, which is appropriate, I think, because I am currently, numerologically speaking, in a personal month two. Now, I had a mentor once who, at the end of our container, it was the final month, which is when things really like fell apart. Um, the ship hit the iceberg, so to speak, right? It went down. Um, Part of me is like, no survivors, but I survived. I think that mentor considers herself a victim, which is fascinating. I will dive into that more at a later date. But maybe I'll touch on it during the class next Saturday, Valentine's Day. Join me and learn about the Venus sequence, how you can use that personally and in business. Because business is personal. I'm just saying. Anyway, I had this mentor, right? Who without naming names, right, taught me a lot about numerology. I learned a lot. But at the end of the container, right, something that kind of irked me, I I had this idea about how I could integrate what I had learned with numerology into my business, right? And possibly the way that I support others, whether that be through products or lessons, right? And I remember this mentor saying that numerology was her niche, not mine, which I find fascinating, right? I know it's not my niche, but I just spent however many months with you, sweetheart, right? What kind of teacher, what kind of mentor would you be if I didn't integrate that into my own business? Unless you view me as the competition, right? We'll come back to that at a later date. This live is not meant to be sassy, but it's me. So, like, I'm a brat, right? Ooh, do we want to go into that tonight? The things that I thought I was going to talk about today. See, this is when part of me is like, Emily, you need to plan this more. Um, we're going to save the brat story for later. That's going to be a fun one though. So stay tuned. It's going to be written, it's going to be spoken about, like it's going to be all the things, right? Side note, fun fact. There are 4 pillars of my business: body, design, synergy, movement. What's the acronym? Connect the dots, right? Anyway, um, lots of things are in development. That's where I was going. I'm in a personal month too, right? Which is very much like, think of the 2 line, right? With human design in a profile. Very natural. Like you have a natural talent for things. Also very hermit like, right? Like you need to, or you feel like you need to kind of hermit sometimes to be natural, and like you're going to be social sometimes, but like, you know, you know where I'm going with that? Connect the dots, right? Connect the systems. It's a very intuitive, kind of behind the scenes number. So that is the personal energy of this month for me. And I can see that so, so much already. And it's only what? It's February 4th, 2026. Um, so, okay, what am I working on behind the scenes that I can actually tell you about right now? The glass box, very slowly. Um, an episode is coming out soon with 2 guests on it. So it's my first episode with 2 people joining me. That'll be, like I said, dropping soon. I just rewatched it. One of the reasons why the glass box, third eye, sorry, boys, they're doing the airplane airs and everything. Fights happen sometimes. Oh no. Third eye just chased Elio into the bedroom. So it's like, I would not be surprised if like a cat fight happens. Welcome to the sanctuary. um, it's a zoo. What was I saying? The glass box. Okay. So I I feel like I've touched on this before, right? In fact, I know I have. I'm just not sure when or where. um, but this ties into something that I was working on earlier today. So, in February, I have my schedule planned out so that I have open availability on Tuesdays and Thursdays for new people who want to be coached by me or have their human design or gene key charts read by me. It's not like I'm not going to be sitting there reading your chart. Like, it's going to be a conversation. It's just very focused on your human design and your gene keys in a little burst of time versus the spark, which is like 90 minutes of one-to-one work. I'm coaching. Like, we're diving into things. Human design and the gene keys will be used, but that's not the focus, right? Anyway, that's like a little sales pitch for you, right? Um, so I'm doing that on Tuesdays and Thursdays this month. On Wednesdays, I'm working at a coffee shop that I freaking adore. It's adorable. And they've got a lot of fun flavors. So I like testing out new things. Like, I've got my go-tos, my favorites, where like anywhere I go, like I have to try that. But whenever I go to coffee shops and they've got like unique combinations, I'm like, let me try it. Sometimes I am disappointed, absolutely. And then I'm like, man, did I just waste money on this? But also, like, I'm expanding my horizons, right? Anyway, I digress. So that's on Wednesdays where I'm going to this coffee shop. Um, I'm working on writing, reading, studying, all the things. Might come back to that. And then Fridays, I'm giving human design readings at Kava Culture, which is in downtown Orlando. So just little schedules, right? Mo. I've shown him before. He's so cute. Um, it's interesting because, okay, I got on that tangent because I was talking about the glass box. This is part of the problem when I have a lot of energy late at night. It feels like it's more discombobulated than normal. So when I don't have a bullet point list of things that I want to talk about, and maybe that's what I should do next time, but also, I don't know. If you're gonna watch the whole thing, you're gonna be entertained, right? One of my old coworkers used to call me E-entertainment. It's like it's a reality TV show, right? You never know what you're gonna get with me. But if you along for the ride, stay along for the ride. That doesn't sound right. But like, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, you're gonna have fun. It's gonna be a wild ride. Buckle up. All that jazz. But it's gonna be worth it. I promise. Anyway, bring it back to the glass box, M, right? Actually, side note first. I was talking about my schedule, right? I'll put a link in, like, I don't know if it's not show notes. Sorry. In my mouth. It's the hazards of being a crazy childless cat lady, right? Um, I will put a link in the show notes. It's just a Dear Revolutionary letter, right? Basically giving a brief overview of like this live replay and whatever like key points that I make, right? Authentic Liberation. It's a school. Still in development, but if you want to join at the beginning as I'm working on things before like the official launch, feel free. It is free. Like, the main thing on that right now that's going to be beneficial for you is the calendar. The community aspect will be will will grow, especially as I actually like legit start launching this, right? I'm just kind of like planting seeds right now. Um, because the calendar is going to have a list of what days I'm opening my schedules for one-on-ones, right? It's going to have a list of the days that I'm working at coffee shops where it's not a time to come to me for one-on-one things, and if you try to sit down and get that, like, I will be asking you to pay me for it. But go to the coffee shop and co-work with me, right? Like, almost as if in preparation for something. A cat cafe, perhaps. That could be fun. Anyway, it will also have the calendar. Um, the dates where I might be popping into local businesses, offering services, or events that I'm planning on going to, maybe events that I'm not planning on going to, but like I still think that it would be beneficial for you to know about, right? Anyway, I digress. Link will be below the live replay. Check it out. No pressure. It doesn't matter. The glass box. Bringing it back to that, right? I just rewatched an episode. And that's one of the things that kind of slows me down with like getting episodes out, right? Is I don't have a team behind me yet to get everything up and running with like videos and technology and all that jazz. And I like to say I'm an 80-year-old woman in a millennial's body. Like I understand technology, but I don't necessarily like it. And like understanding how it all works, I'm excited about it if you're excited about it, right? Like I reflect your spark. But on my own, I could give zero fucks. Like I don't care. I don't edit the glass box unless there's like a very obvious technical issue. Um, it's just like you get to see from the beginning of the conversation until the end, and then I rewatch it and add in my intro outro, right? And one of the reasons why I rewatch it, as well as one of the reasons why it takes me a while to get things posted, well, a few reasons, right? A lot of these conversations, they don't trigger something, but it's like there's so much expansion happening in these conversations. I can't necessarily speak for the guests, right? I'm very aware of what happens when you're in my energy, though. My conscious sun is gate gene key 53.4. The gift of gene key 53 is expansion. If you are in my presence, you're going to experience that. Whether you realize it right away or not, I see how a lot of people don't realize or don't recognize and see my worth, my value until I am long gone. That is something that has often made me very bitter as a projector. Very bitter. Because it's like I see how I'm helping, but you don't necessarily see that. Ooh, this ties into something. So we're going off track, right? As I do. Um, I canceled my Flow Desk account. So I was using Flow Desk for my newsletters for people. And the newsletters that I was sending on Flow Desk were different than what I'm doing with the Revolution. I'm merging them now moving forward. Playing around with that concept, so you'll start seeing that coming out soon. But why did you cancel Flow Desk, Emily? First and foremost, because I had to renew or was being asked to renew my contract in order to keep everything right. And it's just like, it wasn't worth it financially for me to keep that. So I cut the cord, right? And also there's some other things about Flow Desk that I'm just like investigating, I suppose. Um, Not a fan. But in one of my final letters that I sent, and my Flow Desk newsletters were where the Dear Revolutionary letters, Mo, don't you dare. Um, they're where the Dear Revolutionary letters started, right? And in one of my last ones, part of me, I haven't decided if I'm gonna actually like share it verbatim on the revolution or take that and like expand on the concepts, right? But let me give you a brief overview, right? I sent out a newsletter and it was reflecting a bit about the live that I did on, that was January 23rd, where I talked about mentorship, right? A little bit. The mentorship and my experiences in mentorship and my observations of people in leadership positions is going to be a very common theme in my lives, in my writing, in trainings. Like I am I'm a lot of things, right? Like I'm an artist, I'm a writer, like blah blah blah. I get paid to be a leadership mentor. Like that is my job title, right? So that is going to be what I reflect on. And a lot of my work is inspired by and started from my experiences, right? Things that I experienced, I moved through, I've witnessed, that I saw as something that needed to be changed, right? I see corruption in the systems. Like, look at this from a human design perspective, right? I'm a projector. We see deeply into systems, okay? My sphere of attraction is gene key 50.1 specifically, just in case you're curious. The shadow of gene key 50 is corruption. The city is harmony, and the gift is equilibrium. I find all of that fascinating. But basically, something that I've noticed, right, is I am able to look within systems or I attract systems and people, and I can see corruption. And it's interesting because, right, there's a voice in my head that's like, Emily, you're about to get egotistical here. Like, get off of your high horse, your pedestal, break it down. Like, if I fall, I will get back up. Don't worry about it. Um, and honestly, like, if you tell me to get off stage, I'm not going to stay on stage if I'm not wanted. Like, that's a whole different thing. Anyway, Rotten Tomatoes comes to mind. Like, if, nah, no, that was just a thing. Anyway, got sidetracked there. What was I saying? Corruption. Oh, yeah. Nobody's perfect. Let me start there, okay? Something that has been very interesting, fascinating, right? Part of me is like, Emily, you need new words. Um, I had a conversation with my friend earlier today about interesting, right? And I've spoken to that before. Like, people from the Midwest, when we say interesting, it's like there are layers to that. Anyway, um, all relationships are mirrors. Let's start there, right? So when I have been in mentorship containers, for example, where especially at the end of it, I leave feeling bitter. It's interesting because there's a part of me, right? That's like, I could point the finger at the mentor, at the leader, and be like, it was your container. Like, ultimately, those containers begin as a reflection of the person who created them. Let's start there. Accountability, okay? But also, if I'm entering into that, it also is a reflection of me. So, like, when I speak about like mentorships containers, leadership containers, systems, et cetera, where it's like there's corruption there, I take all of these opportunities to not only reflect on what it is that I'm looking at, but also myself. It's fascinating. Like the amount of growth that I have experienced by doing that, by taking the like accountability for myself in those situations. I will dive more into this. Like probably like bullet pointed list. This live is going to be crazy. It's chaotic. Like we're playing in Gene Key 3 right now, which fun fact, I've said this before. 3.3 is my sphere of EQ. The sphere of EQ is part of the Venus sequence, which I will be teaching about on February 14th, right? There's a little pitch for you. Well, not like a clear one, but you know what I mean. Um, it is the conscious Mars placement in your human design. So if you're more familiar with human design, that's where it comes from. The shadow is chaos. The city is innocence, and the gift is innovation. I've mentioned that in other lives, but just in case you haven't seen them, like now you know, right? That sphere is developed between the ages of 7 and 15. So, like me in this moment, right? I'm like, what are you still working through from that time? Um, Fun. I just got a notification. I note the time because I am that itch, right? We're not going down that rabbit hole. Anyway, there's one mentorship in particular that comes to mind when I think about things like this, right? And I'm the type of person, right? Where if things ended poorly, the client, I don't like using that word. I've said that before. I've written about it in like little snippets. I don't like using the word client because to me, that makes it sound as if there's something wrong with the person. Something needs to be fixed, right? So I understand if you go to like the doctor with a broken arm, right? You're a client. Your broken arm is broken. You need it to be fixed, right? But when I enter into a coaching or a mentorship container where I'm being told that we're on the same level, right? Not the next level, the same level. Not different levels, the same level. Why are you calling me a client? And then part of me is like, if that makes me a client, as if there's something wrong with me and I'm a reflection of you, sweetheart, is there something wrong with you? Like, do you want me to go there? Like, ooh, I could. I'm not going to be that mean though. I'm not a mean girl. I'm a nice girl. Minnesota nice, right? With a little bit of spice. um, but anyway, part of me is like, girl, if you might rewatch this and be like, this is gonna be a live that does not get shared. But also authentic liberation, right? Masks off. There's still some bitterness there. Full transparency. But I'm coming back to the glass box. There's a voice in the back of my mind, right? And it's ironically sounds a lot like the mentor that I'm going to be talking about with that. But first, what sparked all of this, right? Emily, what sparked this tangent? The fact that I am working on some case studies, which I also find so fun because I've touched on this before. Um, Also, side note, there's so many freaking side notes in this. I feel like this wall needs to be, you know, those walls in like crime shows? And that meme, I've never seen it. I know I've mentioned this before. Don't remember where. Um, I've never seen Sunny in Philadelphia, but you know that meme where the guy is like this, pointing at the thing with the crazy face? And I'm sure a lot of people watching this are going to be, especially the trolls, are going to be like, this bitch is crazy. And I will respond, and a childless cat lady to boot, right? Let's play with it, run with it. Um, but I feel like I need that back here, right? But it's like basically I would be taking snippets of my lives and like things that I have said and been like, okay, I said this here and this here and this here. Let's connect the dots and figure it out, right? It's a game. Ooh. What's the game, Emily? Blank around and find out comes to mind. Anyway, um, before I get to that, right? So what I mentioned before in another live, um, and I'll be writing about this more extensively because I'm going to be attaching this to my astrocartography. Oh, that's what I was going to say too. Again, with the things. And another side note, part of me is like, I don't need to put a disclaimer. I'm not on anything right now. Like, this is just me, like, my mind right now is so, I'm connecting so many dots that, like, this, one of my friends, she's actually one of the two guests on this next episode of The Glass Box, often says, like, you and your sexy defined mind. Because, like, I've got the mind, the head, and the ajna defined with human design. I'm always thinking, like, it never freaking stops. um, anyway, when I left the corporate world in 2023, I had entered into a master's program. Um, it was my second grad program that I actually entered into. I had applied to more than that and I'd gotten into them, but like I entered into my first one directly out of grad or undergrad school. So that was back in 2012. Um, and then this one in 2023, and I ended up dropping out of both. But what I think is fascinating with that is like there's a lot of shame around that for me, which I'll dive into more. It's really interesting the astrocartography lines affiliated with that, especially the first grad program, the PhD. Um, Part of me is like, do I drop that hint yet or just leave it? Inception. We'll just leave it there. Anyway, um, now I'm thinking about Inception. Doesn't matter. There's a lot of shame around that, right? That like I left the corporate world partially to get my master's and I ended up dropping out. But then I'm like, Emily, you got into a master's program. Me, the overachiever, I got into a master's program and left the corporate world, right? Thinking, I'm just going to go all in on this. But then not only did I do that, I signed up for so many freaking courses outside of the grad program, so many certifications. There was no fucking way that I would be able to do all of them. So over the past 2 years, it's like I've started all of these things as I do, right? 53 high, and I don't have the 42. So it's like I'm very good at starting things and I'm not always good at finishing them, which is one of the reasons why the revolution is kind of like an archive of my whips. Don't make it dirty. Whips, works in process or progress. I always like forget which one it is. I think it's process, works in whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Details. But also pick your poison, fill in the blank, right? You do you, boo. That's all I'm saying. Um, so there was wounding, right? About the fact that I entered this other grad program and then I ended up stopping. However, I just completed assessments for essentially a master's program or mastery of myself. Like that's not what it actually was. But like when I look back on these past 2.5 years, I'm like, Emily, you did the damn thing. The patriarchy just isn't going to recognize it because you didn't do it within that system. You did it outside of it. Fascinating. But anyway, what's really interesting, and part of me is like, now it's almost like you're starting to work on your dissertation. Ooh. Cat down the hall. Anyway, a bag of cats. Side note, just because I said bag. When I moved to Florida, part of me feels like I've said this before, but again, I have the 6124. I'm going to repeat stories. When I moved to Florida, I forget which was my first job. I I did a brief stint as a behavioral, I forget what my actual title was. It wasn't a behavioral therapist. But I worked with autistic children. Like my bachelor's is in psychology. So I got in and I wasn't a certified therapist, so I was whatever like the position below that was where you didn't need that certification. You were more like an assistant type of thing or an associate. Um, but other than that, I worked at Victoria's Secret. I was an angel, right? um, Interesting stories there that I will dive into at some point, I'm sure. But the point with this one, right, is when I was working the register, one, during the time that I was working there, I was taking an acting class at the local college because my dad worked there. I moved in with my parents when I moved to Pensacola. They had moved from Mankato to Pensacola the same time that I moved from Mankato to Buffalo, New York for my grad program. When I left there, I moved down to Florida to move in with my parents, saying I was only going to be in Florida for 6 months. That was in 2013. It has been 13 years. Like there's a part of me that's like, I am itching to move. I just haven't figured out where yet. So there's no rush. It's going to happen. Don't know when, don't know where, but I feel it, right? But anyway, I digress. So when I worked at Victoria's Secret, it was during the time when I was taking an acting class at the local college. I was also involved in community theater, which was the first time that I did anything like that since I think middle school. Oh, there's that EQ tie-in. Yep. I quit a lot of creative things around that time. Okay, because I quit piano when I was 7. I think I stopped acting when I was like 13. Because in high school, I don't think I ever tried out for any of the theater productions, but I did do behind the scenes work. Like I helped with makeup and hair. Um, And I think maybe sound and tech and like painting. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Um, well, maybe it does. Lots of things happening behind the scenes, right? Future oriented. Anyway, I digress. Back to the point. Victoria's Secret. When I was behind the register, if I was bored sometimes, I would speak with a British accent just for fun. And the vast majority of the time, people thought that I was actually British, right? Like, I had played around with that before, but the acting class that I was in at the time was on dialects, right? So we practiced with British accents. I think we tried Australian accents. I was not good at that. We did a lot of different kind of accents, but anyway, I did that at Victoria's Secret, and also that was when I started realizing that I had a Minnesotan accent. Um, and I know that I've touched on this before. Part of me thinks that I've actually told this legit story before. So some of you are like, Emily, we've already heard it. But you guys are gonna hear me repeat stories. So get used to it, right? Um, if you don't like it, then why are you watching? Use your discernment, sweetheart. You can swipe left. Don't swipe right. James Fishback. Do your research on the man, okay? When he was 27, he started dating a 17-year-old, I believe, off the top of my head. I have that correct. And now he's on Tinder, matching with the intention to match with young women to encourage them to vote. Part of me is like, okay, that's kind of genius, but also, sweetheart, we already know that you're like PDF files comes to mind, right? Like, people, given what is happening right now, do you really want to vote for another one? From my understanding of the man, right? Not only did he date a 17-year-old, they might have waited until she was 18, but you know that grooming happened, right? Come on now. No judgment, right? As a grad school dropout, he didn't graduate college. No judgment. You don't need to. I am not a person who believes that you need a formal education to be successful. You don't. Especially not a formal education within the system that we live under. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Nah. But also, like, he tries to make himself seem to be like this blue collared guy who wants to get rid of all these corporations that are coming in and like AI plants and like X, Y, and Z. Like, bring back the fertility of Florida. He talks about orange groves in some of his marketing and his videos. And I'm like, we know that you like fertility. You're attracted to underage women. No, no, no. Correction. Underage girls. James Fishback, running for governor. 1010 would not recommend. Leaving that there. How did I get to this point? That's my question, right? Part of me is like, okay, we were talking about connecting the dots with like the red lines. Redistricting comes to mind, right? I haven't done enough research to like confidently speak on this. And you know what? Part of me is like, that's a problem. People aren't going to take you seriously. But also, I am an average American when it comes to this. I feel like, okay, maybe not like average, because I feel like the average American does not do any research or pay attention to this at all. But I feel like that's also shifting. Maybe I'm just very optimistic. I don't know. Anyway, redistricting. Ronnie, come on. Like, we already know that you're a piece of shit. But come on. Your legacy is going to be horrible. We know that. Maybe don't go out on this note. I'm just I'm just making a recommendation, okay? Take it or leave it. Anyway, we were talking about that and mentorship. I got so sidetracked. That's what happens sometimes when I start talking politics. Okay. Mentorship, grad school, bag. That's it. Victoria's Secret. Working at Victoria's Secret. So behind the counter, right? Would speak with a British accent sometimes. But that was when I learned that I had a Minnesotan accent, because when I said, as you do, right? When you ask if people want a receipt, would you like that in the bag? I have learned to pronounce it bag, because naturally I say bag. And the first time I ever, like, not the first time, but one of the times that I said that, somebody up in Pensacola was like, do I want it then the what? Like, they sounded so offended, like as if I was telling them to beg for it, right? I mean, that too, right? Anyway, grad school, I finished up assessments, case studies. I've started a new project, as I do, right? And it's one where I've known it was going to happen for a while, but it's finally time for me to actually like start working on it, and not just treating it as something that I'm going to do, right? Case studies. Her mentors. Up until recently, I have not felt safe to share my studies and my research publicly. That has changed. And I kind of adore the fact that it's happening right at the tail end of the year of the snake, which officially shifts into the year of the fire horse on February 17th. You okay, baby girl? Yeah. It's that inverted sneeze thing that dogs get sometimes. Oh my God, she's so cute. Um, yeah, I think the timing of it is, it's interesting, right? So yeah, I'm gonna be starting to share my case studies, where I will be sharing the charts of my old mentors, at least the ones whose charts I have. And I have all of the charts of the people that I've worked with in an official capacity, with the exception of like one or two, depending on how you look at it. Um, since I left the corporate world. So no names will be shared unless they choose to, well, I mean, you never know. One day I might change my mind. But right now, the intention is to keep them anonymous, right? Like an actual case study. They're subjects. And I will be writing about my experiences with them through the lens of their design and mine. I find this so fascinating. Like, dude. Part of me's like, girl, but some of you may not be girls, right? I recognize that. I'm trying to adjust how I say things because like when I get going with these things, like I feel like I'm talking to my girlfriends. So it's like I revert to that verbiage, right? Anyway, so I was sitting at this coffee shop earlier today, right? And I was starting to work on this and I was writing things down in my little black book as I do. I don't have it with me right now, which is probably a good thing. And I started making some really interesting connections that like I was aware of, but also it's like now that not only do I feel safe in myself and my ability to navigate all of this on my own, to hold myself accountable, right? As well as others, to move with grace, which, fun fact, is a gene key that I don't have. It's gene key 22. Fascinating number, that one. I'm ready. And also, there was a deadline of sorts. There was one last thing that I was kind of waiting to happen. Because I have been burned before. I've jumped the gun with things, which is, it happens with me. Like, astrologically speaking, okay? My Mars is in Aries. Specifically, my unconscious Mars is actually Aquarius. That's the core wound, 49.4 specifically. My conscious Mars, though, so where that Aries comes from, that's my 3.3. Chaos is the shadow. I'm not afraid to play with that. I think it's fun because when I dive into that shadow of chaos and I come at it from almost a childlike, innocent angle, bringing that city down, it's almost like chaos, the shadow, innocence, the city. You meet in the middle, innovation. That's interesting. Anyway, that made me feel like an evil villain, right? Which, fun fact, makes me think of It's Blank Time. Parts 1 and 2 are on the Revolution. There will be more parts coming soon as well. Stay tuned. But I think I mentioned, I might not have, I haven't reread the stories in quite a long time. I'll need to before I move into part 3 because I need to remember what I said. But in the story of It's Blank Time, right? In part 1, when I was driving down to Tampa with the person that I was driving with, I don't remember if I gave them a code name. I might need to like, that's something that I need to go back and like adjust, right? It's a whip, it's a work in process. I need to give the players consistent code names because in parts 3 and 4, there's going to be new characters entering the scene. We switched locations. We jumped to the other side of the tracks. All of the connections are fascinating. I freaking love it. Side note, if you have a Crunch gym membership, unrelated, You should probably consider canceling that. When you do so, you will still have to pay for one more cycle. And then there's like some time after that in which you can still use the gym. So, for example, I canceled my membership on Saturday, January 31st. I have access to the gyms until March 23rd, I believe. So, you can bet your ass I'm going to make use of that. Inspiration, right? Maybe I'll even check out some different watering holes. See what the animals are like. Okay. Anyway, where was I going with this? This live is going to be fascinating for me to rewatch just because I'm going to need to take notes. I can feel it. There's so many stories here and they all connect like in some way or another, whether you realize it right away or not. Like somewhere down the road they will. Um anyway, okay. Victoria's Secret, the crime scene. Um it's blank time. Oh yeah. Oh, the alligator. Okay, so the alligator asked me one day while we were driving to Tampa. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. Something about Disney. And they turned to me and asked, I don't even know if it was an ask, it was more of a statement. They were like, "You wouldn't mind playing the victim, would you?" And I said, "No. I don't mind. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm going to be the villain in certain people's stories." And for a long time, I did not like that. Like, Minnesota Nice, right? I'm a good girl. I just want everybody to like me. That's boring. Like, it's nah. Like, I'm not gonna actively do things to like create drama, but I'm also not gonna pretend that I don't see what I see. I'm not gonna not call things out, right? Like, I'm just saying. Anyway, case studies. I got really excited when I was at the coffee shop earlier today because, like, I was looking at some of my old mentors' charts, right? And it's not like it was the first time that I had looked at them before, but now that I've like given myself permission to really go all in on this and like start writing and then sharing about this, and not just that, but like I've given my permission to do it without it being complete. Like I've given myself permission to share the connections that I make and the insights that I have in stages. Like this might be a lifelong process, right? Where I make adjustments the more that I learn and grow and expand, right? So there's that. But I made some really interesting new connections when I was looking at one of my old mentors' charts. And yeah, I'm gonna leave that there now for now. What I will say here though is this. If you join me live on the 14th for the Venus sequence, I'm going to be using my chart for a lot of the examples as I'm teaching to the spheres that are part of the Venus sequence. Because my chart is the one that I work with the most, right? So it's like I know intimately, at least for me, the ways in which things are reflected based on my experiences, right? But I'm also going to be using the charts of people that I've worked with and supported, right? as well as my mentors, because I see things from fun little angles with that. It's gonna be fun. Um, and just like to plant the seed for something else, right? Like we're learning about the Venus sequence this month. Next month, we're gonna learn about the Pearl sequence. I haven't decided yet if it's also gonna be the Star Pearl during that, or if it's gonna be like, let's focus in on the Pearl and kind of like more taking what we learned from the Venus sequence and applying that to the Pearl, which also interesting. I had this like this aha moment. I think it was today. What is time? Right? Where if you look at the gene keys sequence in the hologram, and I have my charts up on the Revolution now, so like if you need a chart to look at just for reference, like you can easily look at that or pull up your own, right? Apply this to yourself. See what you discover, see what's unlocked, right? With the gene keys. um but like the star pearl, right? It's at the top. You have the breakthrough from evolution to radiance going through the equator comes to mind. Be nice. um Atlas comes to mind, but that's not the right word. But like you know what I mean, right? um and then below that is the bulk of the Venus sequence. And it was just interesting because sometimes it's like I look at the Gene Keys hologram and I'm like, it's very much like the Venus sequence is a lot of shadow work. I mean, all of it is, because literally shadow, gift, city, right? Almost had a mind fart there. And it's like, Emily, you work with this all the time. Why are you not remembering it? But it happens, right? There's a lot of information up in this brain. Um, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, um, the Venus sequence though, it's like you dive into the depths. That's like inner child work. It's childhood wounding, literally. And you move through that. It's the stories that you told yourself as a child to survive. Fascinating. I will be diving into all of this next week. Like, join the class. It's $2.14. Not to make this a sales pitch, but like also the money goes to renovating the sanctuary and then expanding that space. So, which is interesting. I feel like I've mentioned this maybe in a live. If not, it's another video. Um, the bulk of my professional background, the industry that I worked in, umbrella, real estate, but more specifically, new home sales and new home development, new community development, right? Which I find fascinating because it's almost like I'm renovating the sanctuary to act like a model home for future projects. I'm just saying. Um, so yeah, money goes towards that. And then I'm not anticipating this class being like a huge moneymaker. Full transparency, I'm not. But for like future events as well, like anything that I make beyond what I need for this specific project, I partner with rescues, sanctuaries, nonprofits. Like it will be going towards community development. Okay. Just as like a little side note. Um, part of me is like, how long have I been talking here? I'm trying not to talk for 2 hours, which is fun. Okay, side note again, right? So as I'm in my personal 2 month, right? Um, and I'm like getting all of these systems organized now that I'm like really fucking clear. I've cut the cords with so many things. I've detached from a lot of situations and like just a lot of things, which has been necessary. Um, so now I'm reorganizing everything, right? And I mean, if you've been paying attention to the revolution, live replays have been popping up more consistently, as well as old live replays that I never actually posted outside of Instagram, which like you can't search on Instagram. So like there's one that was from the day after the election in 2024 that I'm going to be sharing the link to. It's on YouTube, but I don't really do much of anything with my YouTube channel, so whatever. Um there's something about that first live replay. I talked a lot about the core, not a lot, but I talked about the core wound. Oh, good Lord. Face plant. Um, One of the things that I started talking about and then I got sidetracked. The last newsletter that I sent out talking about, oh my God, this live is all over the place. Um, Talking about the live that I did on January 23rd and mentorship. I might just refer you to that. I'm gonna like I said, I'm gonna either literally copy paste that or take it and expand on it a bit. But I touched on the two mentors that I talked about on January 23rd, as well as they're not a new case study. Like I already had their information. They were already going to be a case study, but the angle has shifted based on a move that they made. They definitely made the wrong move. I'm just going to say that. But free will, right? Blank around and find out, sweetheart. And you did. There's a part of me that's like, Emily, you should not come at things like this because people are going to be afraid to interact with you. But also, like, you need to learn. You fuck around, you find out. Okay? Across the board. Like, not just with me. Okay? It's not just personal, it expands well beyond that. That is a story and a rabbit hole for another time. Let me get a drink of water. Part of me is like, Emily, you need to calm down. I'm not even activated. Well, I have had a lot of caffeine today. What's the transit right now? I'm just curious. I want to say, yeah, my route's activated. Okay. My ego has also been activated for a while. So maybe that's where like the egotistic stuff is coming in, right? Or maybe it's just the willpower to do the damn thing. Oh my God. I'm getting hot. Oh, pure chaos. It's fun. Anyway, let's bring it back to what I was talking about or planning on talking about with the glass box, right? What the actual fuck? Um, One of the reasons, as I think I started saying at the very beginning of this video, one of the reasons why it takes me a while, like there's a gap between when I record for the glass box and when it goes up, is because the conversations are activating, right? They're very expansive. Wow. I'm connecting like where I started to like how I got back to that point, and it's like, Emily, your brain. It's like, take my brain out and analyze it. I am a case study, right? Oh, crazy childless cat lady. That will be like, if my brain ever ends up in a fucking jar, that would be the label on it. Here lies Emily Case's brain. She was a crazy childless cat lady. Like, what was wrong with her? Um, it, we're not even going there. Anyway, one of the reasons, right, why it takes me a while to like go from having these conversations on the glass box to then sharing them is, like I said, very activating conversations. They're very expansive. And it's like, I have these conversations and I like to then just kind of take a step back and sit with it, right? And sometimes in doing that, what happens is like the voice, whatever, in the back of my head, the version of me that is very self-critical is like, ooh, girl, you fucked that up. You shouldn't have said that. Like, you should have said this, X, Y, and Z, right? And like, I create this story in my mind about how horrible it was. So then it's like, I have to move through the process of like being kind to myself, right? Being like, no, sweetheart, you did great. Be like, part of me is like a dance mom, right? Cheerleader, whatever, like hyping myself up. And then I rewatch it. I'm like, oh, Emily, that wasn't so bad. Like, why are you freaking out? So sorry, I'm like, there's a lot of energy in this body right now. I keep needing to move. Part of me is like, maybe I should go to the gym. We'll see. Anyway, so I need to like move through that before I can rewatch it, and then like it posts pretty soon thereafter. So you may get this live before that episode comes out. You may not. It'll be probably either way, like one right after the other. Anyway, this ties into mentorship, surprisingly, right? Some of you are like, well, this is me, right? Making assumptions about the fact that, like, I believe some of you watching this, and this is also based on experience, right? I fully understand that where it's like the connections and the way that I connect stories together, especially when I'm saying things in long form like this, and it's not something that I've actually structured and really thought about in terms of like telling a whole cohesive story from beginning to end. I fully understand that this might be difficult to follow for people. But like I said, entertainment. Get a bucket of popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. You could make it a drinking game. How many times take a shot every time Emily says interesting or fascinating or like, right? Or right? Like all of the things. And what's funny about this, right, is there's a voice in the back of my mind that's like very self-critical about my speech patterns, but there's another part of me that's like, you're practicing. And how fascinating will it be for me, more so than anybody else, right, to look back on these videos 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, right, and be like, look at how far you've come. Like, you still have that version of you, that storyteller that's all over the place, but also look at how you refine things, right? Connections being made 61, 24, and 62. 24 is my unconscious Mercury placement. 61 is my conscious and unconscious Saturn. The unconscious Saturn becomes the sphere of stability in the star pearl within the gene keys. 61 is also my ascendant. My descendant is 62. 62 is also my conscious Jupiter, so my pearl. And while we're on that page, right? MC is 43, IC is 23. And I think that's fun because it's like my design, I have a split design. So I've got my head and my ajna are defined, and then my throat and my G center are defined. My ajna and throat, like there could be a channel there, but I don't have one that actually connects it. So I have that split definition. Part of me is almost like, not to make it like gruesome, right? Off with her head. Like, part of me is like, I feel like in another lifetime, I probably had that happen because I have, I mean, witch wounds, right? Women in general have a lot of like wounding around their throat. I have a lot of wounding around my throat for a multitude of reasons. We won't go into that, but like, that's interesting. But anyway, if your MC and IC placements and the gene keys, the gates affiliated with that were actually part of like the standard human design chart, then I would be a single definition. But it's not. So sorry, I've got like itch. I don't need to apologize. I know that. There's a voice in the back of my mind still, and it's gonna be probably forever, right? It's like, Emily, why are you sharing yourself like this? Like, just no fucks given. And I touch on this actually in, I think, the intro um to the next episode of the Glass Box. I want you to get to know me, like me, as much as you can through a screen, right? Um, yeah. So I want it to feel as if you're literally just hanging out with me on a Wednesday night. Like, this is me. This is what you see is what you're gonna get. So long as I feel safe in the environment, right? Anyway, go back to the glass box, right? When I first started the glass box, it first aired, I believe it was May 22nd, 2024. Season 1 had 5 episodes, and they came out one right after the other. Consistent schedule. And then I hit a wall and I crashed. And I touch a little bit about that on episode 1 of season 2. I feel like I'll probably go live maybe here or on the glass box, who knows, and dive into this more. Honestly, like part of me wants to go live tomorrow morning. Just like, who knows? Let me sleep on this, right? And then wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning and be like, okay, now that I've had time to sleep and like hopefully get rid of some of this excess energy, um, let's dive into things a little bit more strategically, right? um, but there were a variety of reasons why I hit that wall, and I ended up not sharing anything for over a year on the glass box. And this season, season 2, has been very like the first few episodes came out, I think like 1 or 2 weeks after the other, and then it turned into like a month, and now it's been like 3 months since the last one, and it is what it is. Like, I'm not worried about it. But it's interesting because I look at this from one angle, right? Where the mentor who I was working with at the time that the glass box first launched was a 2-4 emotional generator. And it's fascinating, right? Because it's like she was guiding me in the only way that she knew how, based on what worked for her energy. And she wasn't familiar with human design. She made quite a few comments during the course of that mentorship that made me feel almost like she saw it as a joke. And like a part of me is like, that's not true, because she worked with things like astrology and things like that. So like the woo-woo aspect of it wasn't a concern. But later there were comments that she made. Like, I mentioned at one point that I'm a self-projected projector, and she laughed. And I understand why. Like, self-projected projector, it's just like the double projector thing, I'm sure, is what made her respond the way that she did. Um, but again, it's fascinating for me because like one of the ways in which I'm reframing a lot of my negative experiences in these mentorship containers, right? Is I did not feel seen and recognized in them in the ways that I needed to be. I'm very aware of the fact that I look good on paper. I'm a perfect client, right? But something that I noticed in a lot of my mentorship containers is that a lot of times there would come a point where it often felt like I was mentoring them or I was teaching them in some way. And it's like the exchange was no longer even. There's one in particular where I'm like, karma is an itch, justice will be served. Whether in a court of law or in a different dimension, right? Anyway, so the guidance that she was giving me, right? I can't fault her for, because one, she was a 2-4 emotional generator. So she could likely see that I was lit up by the idea of the glass box and having my podcast and all that. And her very likely seeing herself in me, right? Because all relationships, whether it be a traditional relationship or a mentorship, a friendship, a business partnership, like whatever kind of fucking ship it is a mirror. So I'm sure that she saw that excitement and it likely lit her up as well, right? And as somebody who has consistent energy, she's like, yeah, one episode a week, you can do that, no problem. Sweetheart, not necessarily. Not if it's just me and I've got a lot of other things on my plate, right? I've taken certain things off of my plate. I've taken her advice, right? She had this thing where she told me, Emily, you can put things on a shelf. Think of a closet, right? And at the time, she had been using the metaphor of like drumsticks. Like you can put your drumsticks on a shelf, right? And you can always pick them up again. Like you can put something down, you can pick it up again. It doesn't mean it's forever. You can always come back to it, right? I didn't have the capacity to be consistent with the glass box at the time over an extended period of time. Not without help, and I didn't have any help. I wanted it. I saw the vision for it, but something that I've learned, and honestly, part of me takes this from multiple mentors, right? Is I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of mentors who are like, they market themselves as psychics, they don't like to give dates because if that doesn't happen, right, you look like a fraud. And from my perspective, I have a lot of old mentors who look look like frauds right about now because all of the time frames, the timelines that they gave me, none of them came true. But then again, take accountability, right? Like, Emily, did you do the things that you needed to do to reach that thing in that timeline? Probably not. But also, as a projector, not to use it as an excuse, but as a single projector, doing all of these things on my own, like getting my hopes up for that specific timeline. And shame on me, right? For following their authority rather than my own, putting all of my hopes and dreams on that and being like, it's going to happen in this time frame. And then it's like getting very disappointed when reality doesn't meet the expectations, right? That's another side note. Expectations ruin a lot of things. That's a whole different tangent. But anyway, I often reflect back on the mentorships in the past 2 years specifically, where it's like I had these negative experiences where I left the containers feeling bitter as fuck, which is also fascinating too, because I'm like, I left the container in my not self. And at least with one old mentor, I'm like, probably two. I'm pretty sure they did as well. I know for, like I said, I know for sure that one of them did. She made a post, the one that blocked me, right? Um, Made a post the other day. I don't check on her very often. I very rarely check back on like exes, but every now and then out of curiosity, especially when it's like I'm working on a story, I'm like, let me just check and see like where are they at? She's still very much like in her shadows. No judgment. Um, but it's fascinating because it's like I look at what she's creating right now and I'm like, I can tell exactly where she is, where she's stuck in her cycle with like the gene keys. It's fascinating. Um, but I look back on these, right? And I'm like, one, none of them were trauma informed. None of them were. One of them was like, they I mean, all of them have experienced trauma, right? And like one of them has been working on some things where it's like she wasn't certified trauma informed, but I feel like she had done a lot of reading where it's like she was at least like well versed in it, right? But I'm like, man, if you were trauma informed, for one, just not even like just aware, right? But also, if you understood human design, if those mentors had understood my human design, I wonder if things would have ended the way that they did. It's fascinating. Anyway, where I'm at now with the glass box is obviously I'm following my own flow. Like there is no pressure to get anything out. Um I suspect in the future, right, with future episodes because things are shifting. Can't really speak to that, but like things are shifting. Um quick turnarounds are going to require help, meaning there may likely be some kind of cost. A donation, right? To the cause. Anyway, what time is it? Okay. I have no idea what I talked about today. I mean, I do, but I'm trying to think because I know when I started, right, in the back of my mind, I wanted to touch on some of the mentorship stuff and like the behind the scenes things. And I think that I did. I'm literally sitting here now, like, can we wrap this one up, Em? Or is there anything else that you have left to say? Hmm. Ooh, okay, I'll do a plug. Um, I will be speaking in Miami, Florida in April at a human design experience. So I will link um, their website in the show notes, the letter, like, et cetera, et cetera. Check it out. And if you're able to join, I would love to see you there. A lot of the things that I'm going to be speaking about over the course of the next 2 months live here, and then also in the classes that I offer, the like two, maybe three that I offer, right, are going to be kind of lead ins into that. It's going to be fun. 1010 would recommend, right? Check it out. I've never been to Miami, so I'm really excited about that. Um, haven't decided yet. Part of me wants to try the Bright Line out. Like I haven't decided if I'm gonna drive there. I don't like I enjoy road trips. I'm totally fine driving as long as there's good music. Um, but I'm not a fan of driving in cities, especially like busy cities. And one of my friends is from Miami. I mean, I've got actually a few friends who are from Miami. Um, cue the cat playing with that spinny thing right now. So this is really the sign to wrap things up, right? Um, yeah, my friend in Nashville, who is from Miami, she visited here during the cold spell. Which is so curious because it's like she left Nashville after they got hit by the whole winter storm, and then she came here thinking, "Oh, it's gonna be nice," and it's like, no, it's not. Oh Lord, gotta love it. Anyway, yeah, she was like, Emily, you're not gonna like driving around Miami, and I'm like, I'm sure. So I haven't decided yet. We might try the Bright Line. Get a spot on the beach so I can rent a bike and like bike up and down, right? That would be fun. Anyway, that's a whole different tangent. Check out the conference. I'll be there speaking. Um, the speakers that have already been announced are gonna chef's kiss, right? Amazing. I'm super excited. Um, a connection to a story that I was gonna share tonight popped in, but I'm like, I kind of touched on it in that last newsletter that I talked about, but we're gonna leave that there, right? So literally, Emily, is there anything else that you feel like you need to share today? Right? Asking myself. I mean, there's a lot of things that I could share. But no, I think that this is a good place to end. So, yeah, we're just going to wrap it up here. Not necessarily the neatest bow. I was never the best at wrapping presents. Like literally, Christmas presents from me were like were just a mess. The gift inside was always good. Well, maybe not always, but like some of the gifts that I've given people, I'm like, man, Emily, you put some real thought into that. Good girl, right? The wrapping of it though, I'm not, I don't know if that's my style. I enjoy it though. But I don't know. I also haven't ever listened to myself. So that's a whole different story. Which also reminds me, stay tuned for a behind the scenes look at something involving a little black book. With love, Kai. Just kidding. That's Mo's tale. You know who I am.